In this video, we're going to take a look at several functions that can help us get the largest and smallest values out of data sets. We'll be taking a look at the max, min, maxifs, minifs, large, and small functions. Working through these examples, we have real estate transaction data with dates, prices, and a few other columns of information. And let's say we're posed with a question of what was the maximum price that we saw in this data set. We can start by typing the max function, highlighting the array that has our values, close that, and there we can get the maximum price from the data set. If we want to get the minimum price, we can type min, go over to our price column, close that, and there we have both the max and the min prices within this array. Now, if we wanted to look at what the top several highest prices or top several lowest prices, we could use the large and small functions. So take a look at the largest prices. We can type in large. We can select our array. And for K, you can enter what instance we want to see. So if we want to see our first largest instance, we can enter a 1 and close that. And there we can see that matches our max price. If we wanted to see the second largest instance, we could put a 2. And one handy trick we can add is some 1, 2, and 3 off to the side. And we can make this a little bit more dynamic. So instead of hard coding specific numbers, we can have it reference these cells off to the side. And then if we drag this down, we could see that it'll pull the first, the second, and the third highest prices. And we can do the same thing with the small function. So once again, highlighting our price. And for the numbers, we can reference off to the side. And we have our smallest, second smallest, and third smallest prices in our data set. Now these functions can work looking vertically as well as horizontal. So if we wanted to look at some additional data, let's say we have some realtor information about appointments booked by month, and we want to see what was the max amount of appointments booked by month. We could use our max function, highlight the array of data we're interested in, and pull this down, and do the same thing with the min function. Highlighting the array of data we're interested in, then pull that down. And there we can see the maximum appointments booked and the minimum by sales rep per month. Now the next functions we'll take a look at are the MAXIFS and MINIFS function. And this will be how we can add criteria to finding the max and minimum value in a data set. So let's say that we want to find the maximum price if our unit type is house. So to do that, we can start by typing a MAXIFS function, which will allow us to add criteria. And the range that we're looking to find the max value is the price. And the criteria range, so what we want to base finding the maximum value, will be our type column. And the criteria we're interested in this case is when we find house. And we can close that. And we have our maximum house price in the data set. Now, if we want to add criteria, we can grab this formula, paste it into this cell. Let's say we want to find the max price for a house, but only in the northern region. So we can come back into our formula and go into our second criteria range, which will be when our region, when we find more there, close that. And there we have an additional criteria. So our maximum price when the house in the northern region. Now, if we wanted to add another criteria for house in the northern region for the month of March, we could paste the formula that we've already written out. And then for our third criteria, we'll now want to start looking at the date column. And we'll want to do that when this is greater than or equal to the 1st of March. So we could type in 0301, and this data is 2020 data. Then we want to reference our date column again when that is less than or equal to the last day of March. So add ampersand, and then 03/31, 2020. Close that. And there we have the maximum price for a house in the northern region for the month of March. And if we wanted to add one more criteria, if we're looking in our data set and we don't want the method to be a sale, we can use an inequality. So what that looks like is if we highlight our 5th criteria range of methods, and then we can do the not equal to symbol, and then sale. So that's a few examples of how we can add different criteria. So the max and minifs functions support all the different types of logical operators and wildcards. Now, if we want a simple way to get the minimum price, we could do a find and replace on this formula. And when we find max, replace that with min in our formula. And there we have the min price based on the same criteria. And we'll go through one more example looking at it by month. So if we wanted to build out a little report, a little chart off to the side, we could pull the max and min price by month. And to do that, we'll start by typing MAXIFS for our price. And then for our date range will be the criteria we're interested in. And we'll do that when that is greater than or equal to our month over here. And then for our second criteria, we'll reference our date again. And we want that when it is less than the next month. Close that. And then here we can pull down our formula. And we get the max price by month. And there's no May data in this data set, but when we would add May data, we could just keep pulling this formula down and it would keep populating. And we can do the same trick that we did up here, where we can copy this formula over and replace the max with a min to get the same data by month. Now let's take a look at how we can add additional functions with the MAXIF. And let's say the question we're posed with is we want to get the max and min value by agent. So the first thing we can do is sorting our data by agent. So let's start by filtering our data set for agent. And let's say we want to also include the region. So let's do filter. And let's filter our agent column. And we want to include the agent when our region, and let's start with this one that equals our northern region. And we'll look at how we can make that dynamic in a second. Northern. So this will give us all of the agents that had a sale in the northern region. And let's take a unique of this so we don't have duplicate records, so we can wrap that unique. And if we want to sort this alphabetically, we could also put this within the sort function. and that's now sorted alphabetically. And to make this more dynamic, let's say we wanted to add a drop down over here. We could go into our data tab, over to data validation. We could choose a list, and that source would be our region. We can hit OK. And here we can then, from the drop-down, select a region we're interested in. So in our formula, let's replace northern with referencing this cell, and we'll lock it using F4. And then as we switch through the regions, we'll get the unique sorted list of agents. Now from here, we can add the MAXIFS function off to the side. And let's do MAXIF our price is the maximum value we're looking for. The criteria we're interested in is when our agent, when in this agent column, we find this agent, and within this region column, we find the region that we're referencing over here. And then we can pull this down. And then as we change this dropdown, we can get different values that will dynamically update. And let's say we want to get rid of these zeros. We could also incorporate the if function. And for this, we'd want to wrap this MAXIF if this equals 0. Then we can give it a blank. If that's false, then we want to return what we had in the first place. So we can copy our formula into the value of false, then close that. Then if we pull this down, now our zeros will be blanks for any of the regions that we select. Now, if we wanted the lowest price, we could use the same exact formula, but we would just replace the max with the min, and we could add that to this column over here. One last example we'll take a look at is using a large and small filter, functions with a filter. So similar to what we looked at in the first tab. So we can start by doing a similar data validation. So let's say we wanted to have a drop down for our agents. In this cell, we could add a data validation for our agents. So we'll select that as our list. Hit OK. And then as we're building out our formula, we can reference this cell, make it dynamic. And first, let's filter our data. So we'll use a filter function. And we want to filter our price and include it when our agent equals what we have in this dropdown. And we can close that. Then format that for all values. So this will be giving us all of the values for the stream dwell realty. And let's say we just wanted the largest values. So we can see that it'd be 220, 990, and 878. So if we just wanted those top three, we could put this in the large function. That'll be our array. And then we can reference our cells off to the side here. And we get the 220, the 990, and the 878. And then we can do the same thing with the small function. So we can copy that, paste here, and change this to small. drag that down. And there we have the 3 highest and the 3 lowest prices. And once again, can change our filter over here to get that updated. So that's a few examples of using the max, the min, looking at MAXIFS and MINIFS with different criteria, how we can start to incorporate other functions that we might be familiar with, the filter and the unique and sort functions. So very helpful functions to have in your toolbox to help with any data analysis, assessments, and making understanding your data a lot easier.